This is Louis Zumbach with Rush Hour Ag. Leave your message after the tone.
Hey Louis, it's Elliot Henderson. Can't wait to tell you about
rolling down the back road, truth riding with the dust, talking agriculture policy with people you can trust. From the field to the Capitol, we're breaking it down. Real talk, real issues from a real farm town. Every hour's rush hour when the work won't leave, so we're cutting through the noise and setting things straight.
What's your rush today, Elliot?
Let's do this thing, Louis.
You bet. Welcome to Rush Hour Ag. In tonight's exciting podcast, we have a return guest, Mr. Lance Lillibridge from just over by Vinton over here. What, about 45 minutes?
Yep, about 45 minutes.
And we've had a lot of conversations on the phone. And like usual, he said, you know, we got to stop this and do it on the air. I hope we can recreate it because they get heated once in a while.
So Lance was on last time we were out to Farm Progress Show.
Yes.
And that was a great episode about renewable fuels and your work at NASA.
Yep.
So this should be you're a pretty worldly guy. So as we expand our
I
horizons,
get around.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about something different. No, but speaking of being worldly, you know, in today's world, we have world markets. We were just sitting in my office earlier tonight, before you got here, Elliot, talking about fertilizer and whether Lance and I are both considered not putting any on this year. We can live without it a year, we feel. In our case, we use a lot of hog manure on certain farms, so that'll help us out.
But
But
we use
that-
cattle manure as well.
Right.
So
But having said that, it's because of the world market and the tariffs and what kind of tariffs are they again?
you got
Countervailing
CVDs,
duties.
you got countervailing duties, and you have tariffs. Yes.
Right.
And they're two different things.
And we hit on that a little bit down at Farm Progress, but let's start with that because that at the end of the day, our crop prices, although corn is lower, but our bean price, and that's what's getting all the news right now, is about the same as it was last year.
Yeah, and that's a little bit frustrating. You know, we have markets for these products for corn, beans. We have markets for them, and it seems to me as though the media is spinning this thing in a direction that's maybe not exactly correct. Yes, China's not buying beans. That's old news. They're not doing it, and that's fine. But we're still moving beans. We still have record exports, and the price of beans today is nearly the same as it was last year at this time. And the year before, I believe it approached $16. Things were different then a little bit. Maybe we didn't have the production that we did the last 2 years, but supply demand dictates that price. And right now, even with not selling beans to China, we still have the same price of bean as we did a year ago.
That's what I really think, you know, people are confusing the two things, having markets and having profits. And all over social media in the last couple of weeks, it has been this nonstop drumbeat that these associations, trade groups aren't doing enough to create markets. Well, the markets are there, but the profits aren't. So the problem is really the inputs then.
Yeah, it's the profitability. So if we got $10 beans and it costs me $11 to produce them, that's not good. That means the fertilizer's up, that the seed is up, the cost of machinery, repairs are up, maybe rent's up, all these things are up, and it's impossible to make a profit. Well, what has driven them up? That's the thing that we have to ask. Is it supply demand? I've not ever run out of fertilizer. I've never run out of seed. I mean, there's always been chemical available and there's always been equipment available. So I don't know how supply and demand of our inputs could be a factor there. I think it's more of a market manipulation. Maybe there's some, when we talk about fertilizer and countervailing duties, maybe that's part of it. Maybe we're creating a false high in this fertilizer market.
Yeah, I think, to start with, we'll go to the markets. The world bean supply is X, and it's X every year. And so although China's not buying our beans are still moving to someone else at roughly the same price as last year. and you're talking about profits. I think part of it is, and I don't want to call it, I'm not sure what I'd call it, but these corporations anymore are charging way more for their equipment. For instance, we'll pick on deer a little bit. Some of it's just getting outlandish, $1 million for a combine. What's that combine do that my 4-year-old combine didn't do?
It's the things are being priced at what the market will bear. And I got a little frustrated today reading a social media post where somebody said, somebody was complaining about the cost of parts, and another person says, well, just don't buy them, that'll fix it. It's like, well, okay, if we don't buy it, so we're going to leave that $1 million combine sit out in the middle of the field and rot, and then we're not going to grow anything, we're not going to harvest anything, and maybe what this country needs is a good famine, and that might straighten some things out. Now that's pretty severe thought process, but when you talk about parts, Louis, I got a Peterbilt truck, and I got 2 of them. They're one serial number apart, and both of these trucks, within a week, the window switch to roll the window down quit working.
Yep.
How much do you think a window switch for a Peterbilt is?
Did you buy it to Amazon, or did you go down to Peterbilt and buy it?
I had to go to Peterbilt.
$450.
$600.
$600
for a freaking window switch. It was manufactured in Mexico. I mean, it probably cost $3 to manufacture, but by the time we bring it out of Mexico and we throw a tariff on it, somebody's got to make a profit. The tariff gets put on it, then the distributor has to mark it up, and they mark up along with that tariff. They don't just mark up the cost of the.
It's got that red oval.
Yeah,
that costs more.
And it's just insane.
But I think about, I'm on my 3rd $2,500 alternator on a sod harvester with a John Deere engine in it, and that's my 3rd alternator in 2 years. That alternator is a very common alternator, but since it's got like a John Deere what do they call it, regulator
Yeah.
In it,
Built in.
it's built into it. You can't rebuild that thing, but it'd be like a $600 alternator anywhere else. So, I mean, we're at the mercy of these manufacturers because they have, they monopolized on these parts. And I keep thinking, if trade is really what we're after, why don't we open up trade? Why don't we extend an olive branch to China and say, I'll take me one of them red John Deere looking combines for 20% of the cost of the John Deere one? Because is John Deere really doing what's right for the American farmer when they're making $14 billion in profit, and then they're walling off the competition that's willing to come in and offer the American farmer those products?
Well, if they're doing wrong or right, but I know that certainly is adding to our bottom line. And I know that I was looking at combines a little bit this year. I usually run a year-old combine, and I run it three years, so I have a 4-year-old combine and trade. It's kind of been what I've done for a long time. And the new combine has a lot of technology on it that I think Deere, if you're going to use that technology, you have a prescription every year.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't, I still sit in the cab. I still set my own combine. I don't need 50 satellite photos shooting out in cameras.
I mean, you're not on social media while that combine's doing its job, Louis?
Only to watch Rush Hour Ag and Farm for Profit. But other than that, I'm pretty dedicated.
More selfies.
But the thing,
well, I got maybe just a little bit different opinion on that. Okay, I mean, yeah, I think John Deere's making plenty of money. I mean, and I don't want anybody to be struggling. I mean, even our fertilizer companies, I don't want them to struggle. I don't want our seeding companies to struggle. But for crying out loud, we gotta look at this whole ag sector. And I told a guy one time I bought some semi trucks from him when I had my trucking company, and he wanted me to buy from him, and I did, and I bought from his competitor. And I said, "Geez, Mike," I says, I know you got a nice place up there in Galena, and I don't want to buy all the windows in your house, but I'd certainly help you buy a couple. And my point is that we all have to be profitable. And, in the case of Deere or Case IH or any of those guys, I mean, some of the new technologies that they're coming out with are expensive. And I've had an opportunity to work with some of these companies on some of the technologies that they're doing, and I get to see some of the costs that they're enduring to do that, and the fact that they want to make sure that they put a product out that we're not going to be upset with. But I understand how you'd be upset with this alternator not working because it's got a John Deere component in it that's making it be more expensive. So we need to have conversations with our
It's like
manufacturers, and
the song is different for these different sectors, but the tune is the same. Whether
Yep.
it's fertilizer, it's these manufacturers, it's seed. It's been this massive consolidation. It's been they can run the rates up onto whatever they want because they know that whatever the United States policies are, and this is a policy podcast, so I'm very targeted on policy, and I do blame policy for getting us to where we are. We have policy that regulates the competition coming in for these industries. So, I can't get that cheap Chinese combine with no def on it. I can't buy the Moroccan phosphate.
right.
I don't have access to these other markets, but yet we're working our tails off to market the products that we're making, and we're getting I hate to say peanuts, but because we're getting less than peanuts for it.
Right.
Well, I think the policy starting back in probably I don't know, was it in the 50s when they started this cheap food policy and wanted,
Well, wasn't it about the same time as the Sherman Act?
when was the Sherman Act?
Ooh.
And
I think that was pre-World War II, wasn't it?
well, it could have, would it start with that?
I don't remember.
Well, anyhow, whenever it started, it's done probably what it was meant to do, which was to create a cheap 1890. Thank you. Long before, that's when the Sherman Act was.
So
You're
talk
thinking
about
more Norman Borlaug. You're
Yeah.
thinking more like fence.
Well,
I'm just
no, but
thinking-
there was some policy created around having cheap food, and it subsidized agriculture
Right.
to make that happen.
Okay.
But when you
But
combine the
only
two
did it-
things,
not only did it subsidize agriculture, it got it to where keeping cheap food kept farmers kind of handcuffed a little bit,
Mhm.
to where it started farmer expansion or consolidation.
Yep.
And now that's snowballed into the whole thing of where we're at today. And we talk about it quite often because land transition's part of it, and all that, and how it's moving fast. It's moving faster than
well, this all goes down to food security, Louis. I mean, we're 87,000 less feedlots over a decade for feeding cattle, and we have the lowest cow herd in history right now in the United States. And
that's the 50s.
well, I think ever at this
I
point.
heard it was the 50s.
It might be I think I've heard the 50s about a year ago, but anyways, maybe we can get that looked up too.
She's on it. Sure.
But it's low and it's causing problems. So that's why we got high beef prices. Now, as a cattle producer, I'm going to enjoy these prices,
Right.
and I don't want to see the government come in and subsidize it. I want to see us build the herd back in a natural way, and that's what should happen. That's what's going to find that median where producers can be profitable and people want to do that job.
But in the perfect world, you don't build a cow herd back like a sow herd.
No,
It takes way longer time.
Right.
Yep.
And we have an aging farmer
exactly.
population. So if you're in your mid to late 60s, early 70s, and you got this cow herd, and cows are bringing
$4,000,
okay $4,000,
$3,500. Yeah,
are you going to rebuild the cow herd?
absolutely
Or
not.
are you going to cash in?
I'm cashing.
So the and I shouldn't say it like that. That's probably poor words. I mean, you worked your whole life. It's not like you're, but is what I'm getting at is it's going to take years to build back our cattle population. And in the meantime, Brazil or Argentina, where is JBS from?
Brazil.
What are they doing down there? And could they be behind in the end keeping our beef prices high, since they are pretty much the largest end user of beef owning the plants? And what's really driving this, and where's it going to end up?
I think the consumers got to look at what's going on. They have to become more in tune to what's going on with policy and agriculture and what happens beyond the farm. For example, when we sell cattle to a JBS or a Cargill or something like that, you have a ton of that meat is actually being exported. All your high-end cuts are being exported. And in the meantime, all your low-end cuts from these other countries are being shipped in here to make up the difference to feed our population.
But haven't we conditioned the populace not to care where their food really comes from? I mean, I see what you're saying. Like, we need the consumer to care, but everybody wants cheap stuff. So they don't care if the beef comes from Brazil or the Mato Grosso or Western Wyoming. They don't care.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit because I thought that we sent our cheaper cuts and things that we don't eat here to Mexico.
That's what I thought too, Louis.
And the better cuts come here. And the reason I'm saying that is I go to Texas in the wintertime and I don't know what they call it. It's a delicacy down there. And yeah, we don't eat that here.
Tongues?
No,
No.
well,
Not tongues.
so
Other end.
there's a lot of added value type pieces that come off the cow. You know,
Yep.
your tongue is a very, I mean, a value added piece, the tail heads and different things like that. But there are a lot of prime cuts that are exported as well. And so I think we just need to pay attention to that as a consumer and really decide what it is we want. Do we want American beef or do we want foreign beef? And right now, I don't think we know when we go to the supermarket. I mean, the whole cool issue is
Right.
there too, country of origin labeling. And until we get policy that is spot on with that, it's going to be difficult to ever know. Am I eating a steak from Brazil or is it from Australia or
Sure.
where is it from? Here's the other thing. If we're, as Americans, not able to produce what the Americans need, we absolutely want to get, we don't want to starve. I mean,
Sure.
but we have to make things in agriculture work for the younger generation. As you said, we have an aging farmer population. And for example, on my farm, I'm to the point where I don't really want to deal with the cattle anymore. If it wasn't for my son, they'd have been gone a year ago. But because he likes the cattle, because thinks that's what he wants to do, he's 19 years old, we're letting him make decisions on it. He's retaining heifers. He says, hey, if I can get the same amount of money out of 50 head of steers in heifers as I could 75, then I'm going to keep 25 back and we're going to breed them. You know, we're going to grow the cow herd. So he's thinking opportunity for him in this market.
Are there any, like the row crop thing, these costs have all gone up and taken out the profits? Is that happening at all? Or do you see that happening in the beef thing in the next
Well, actually, no. I mean, because we've got bean meal is reasonable right now. I mean, we don't have $16 beans. We got $10 beans. Okay. And that's why there's a demand. By the way, there's 16.5 more percent bean crush in the United States now than there was a couple years ago either. And that's from plant expansion and new plants. But corn, you got $4 corn. That's very attractive to a feedlot right now. So,
Sure. A side note, we are at a 73-year low.
73-year low. Okay, perfect.
So I want to kind of circle back to it while we were talking. So what I wanted to ask you, try to identify the problem here. What took the production that we had? What dropped it back? And
What dropped the production of the cattle? Well, drought. Drought was a big one. We had 3-4 years of drought, heavy drought down south. Okay,
And out west.
Yep. So you have that. You have the New World screwworm issue. So
what fatalities have we really had from New World here in the United States?
We haven't, but that's the thing. The fatality is they're not bringing feeder cattle across the border to feed in the
because they are
US.
losing them in Mexico.
They don't want to bring that. They don't want to bring that problem here. So they've said no more cows are coming across the border. No more cattle are coming across the border. So we don't have. We imported cattle from Mexico live.
Those
hens.
cows were getting butchered here. Those weren't.
No, they were feeder calves that were coming here to get fed.
Okay.
And so we don't have that. Okay. You have an aging population, guys that are getting out of it. Okay, you had the last 3 or 4 years, you had really strong row crop production. Fences came out. Guys are like, I'm done with the cows. We're not going to graze them on stocks anymore.
RFS
Fences
drove
out.
that.
Yes.
Risk reduction programs through the government. I mean, I'm really,
You
I like to
also
point my
had,
finger on that, but
the consolidation of feedlots, and with the 4 big packers, was difficult for the guy that grew 10, 15 head on a feedlot on a family farm. It was difficult for him to market those cattle, you know? And so when you're feeding, like, I think I sent you a video on this, that those packers all moved into what, Cow Alley or whatever they think they called it. And so your feedlots kind of followed so that you weren't more than 300 miles away from a packer. And so it made it difficult for those that were feeding, you know, smaller packers. So it became uncompetitive. And for a long time, you'd go broke feeding a steer.
yep.
And especially in 2020, 21, 22, when you had high grain prices, it didn't work.
So there again, that's another perfect example of the consolidation and integration within the market that has really wrecked
Yes,
the market.
absolutely. It has given market power to those companies that are purchasing those animals. For example, Louis, you got a feedlot, you're across the road from each other, okay? You got 100,000 steers and you got 100,000 steers. Here's the difference between the two of you. You owe some money. You don't. You have to sell your animals. So when that packer comes and says, I'm going to give you X for this, you say, well, I need the money. Okay, I'm selling them. And you can say, go fly a kite.
Well, for a certain amount of time, you can.
Exactly. But you have that control at that point.
Sure.
He doesn't. So
I mean, when we're row croppers, so that's
it's the same way in the row crop.
very, very common. I mean, you got a cash flow.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I remember my father-in-law used to say you needed enough storage to carry 2 years with the crop, which is kind of what you're saying. You know, you need enough that you could
Ride a
don't have
storm.
to sell.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to sell.
Right.
And, you know, even we fill up to where we have to be pretty empty
Yeah.
to make room for next year's. But we're talking about 2 things that we've talked about before, but so the 2 major things that come to this, whether it's any kind of farm commodities, but you got food security, which there's a lot of people that don't have food security in America. But also, to me, food security actually equals something bigger, and that's national. Because if we start importing everything, or not everything, but a large portion, whether it's beef, pork,
Poultry,
you take your pick,
processed foods.
that makes our country weaker.
Yeah, but I can't follow the argument that we don't have food security here. Like, there's so much food here. There's so much production here.
There is for the people that can afford it, but we do have a number of people that are limited there, and
I think you're going to find that everywhere you go in the world that there's somebody that doesn't have enough to eat, and that's unfortunate. And it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen right here in the United States ever. But it's going to get worse with this situation that we have going on right now. If you start taking out farmers, there's 100% more bankruptcies in the South right now in the last 6 months than there has been over the last year. Okay. And you start taking out those farmers and you start having more consolidation, we keep getting into a food security issue. It's just plain and simple. It's not, I mean,
But like the production isn't down. You know, there are not acres sitting idle. There are not piles of beans not being processed. And that's where it's like, I'm struggling with this. Where's the insecurity at? Other than you're having less people doing the work.
I think it depends how you want to look at food security. But for me, it being like county supervisor, we had a large grocery store closed in downtown Cedar Rapids while I was supervisor. And those people kind of became in a food desert a little bit. You know, they don't all have a vehicle they can hop in. I mean, we live out in the country. I say I'm in the middle of everywhere because about 20 minutes I can be in Anamosa, Monticello, Manchester, Marion. To most people that live in the Cedar Rapids, I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So it all depends on how I look at it. But those people, we did some things to try to remedy some of that as best we could. And I think another company made it come in and opened a short line grocery store. But that's what food security, insecurity means to a lot of people. It's not that there's not an abundance of food in America.
But it's also how much it
Not there.
costs.
And,
Well, it
and
sounds-
And when you're talking about $7 hamburger, I mean, that's a problem for some people.
Sure.
I mean, when you talk about $1.89 for a loaf of bread, I don't know what a loaf of bread costs now. $1.89, $2.
So
I should know. I'm having to do all my grocery shopping now, but
I feel like
gallon of milk. I mean,
today it has nothing to do with grocery shopping a little bit. I happened to fill my truck up with the 85.
mhm.
It's $1.84.9. Pretty good price. I'm pretty happy I can do that with my truck. And somebody asked me if I got less mileage or not. Well, that's like you buying bread. I fill my truck up with it's on empty, and whatever the mileage is, it is. I have no idea what kind of
You're
mileage
not
my
paying
truck
attention
is.
to it, probably.
But I guess these things that you guys were talking about, I hear inconvenience. I don't hear, $7 hamburger. Yeah, that sucks, but maybe don't go to McDonald's and make your own hamburger. The grocery store is not there no more, so it's inconvenient to travel a little bit further. But I'm not hearing like insecurity concerns. So I guess that's where
Well, I suppose you've been around the world and you see insecurity differently probably than maybe what we do, and maybe we don't have the exact same definition of that. But I will tell you that I understand what you're saying, Louis. There's folks down in that part of town that they don't have a car,
Right.
and so for them to drive 3 miles is a problem. Somebody for like my wife, if she lived in town, she can't drive, so she's going to have to take a wheelchair or have somebody bring something to her. But maybe if she was within a block or two, she could get there, and do that. And so there is food insecurities here for some people, and it's unfortunate, and it shouldn't be that way. But it's not widespread. It's not like there's a famine type insecurity type situation, so.
And I think people, I know this on the county basis. We have a group of people that want to grow their own food. Farmer, they want to be. They are farmers, and I've been to a couple of their areas where they're growing, and a couple of them do a marvelous job. And it's not the type of farming that we do. They're not going to feed the masses, but they do a marvelous job of what they're growing.
Yep.
Which is fruits and vegetables in this case, but they're not going to fix food insecurity.
No.
And I think there gets to be a confusion of that with people. I know there it is in Lynn County. It's two separate issues.
Yeah.
Those people want to gain access to ground and be able to do what they're doing, and for people to recognize that. But they're never gonna feed the masses, and
Right.
they're not dealing with the people that actually have the insecurity, and they need to look at what their market is, and a lot of their market is probably upper middle class that can afford to buy what they're growing.
Don't you think though that's part of the disconnect between what we do and what others think we do? For example, a lot of people are like, well, just grow something else. I don't know why you're growing that stupid corn anyway. I don't know why you're growing. That's just dumb. And it's like, well, here's the deal. That corn is feeding chickens.
Yep.
That's providing eggs. Okay. That's pork. That's beef.
Cattle.
I mean, that's milk. That's all of these things. And then besides that, you start looking on the back of boxes of the processed foods. There's cornstarch and many, many things. So yes, we're feeding the masses when you think about it. If you were to take away corn production, what kind of famine would you have in the United States today? What kind of food insecurity would you have? It would be
And not only that,
unfathomable.
to piggyback on that, because I'm sure all of our corn, or a lot of our corn, goes to ADM, for instance. Ethanol is what you think of right away.
Mm-hmm.
But that corn plant that produces the ethanol comes up with a lot of byproducts from that corn plant that still goes into food.
Absolutely.
So when people say, especially like on RAGBRAI, oh, that's not the food we eat. That's not the food we eat.
Well, it is.
Well, it's not the food that you buy and eat as sweet corn,
Right.
but you're still eating that food.
That's right.
It's somewhere in
When you have
your
that
diet.
juicy tenderloin,
Yeah.
when you crack that egg and you absolutely, that's the food you eat.
Right.
Sure.
And so that's another thing that people, when they get on the ethanol bandwagon, if it's bad, if it's good, well, we'd have more food. No, we really wouldn't have more food. It's still producing food along with.
So kind of almost need a whole new food policy thing going on to hopefully maybe correct some of this stuff. But I talked about the Sherman Act earlier and antitrust and stuff like that. We've got policy out here, but it hasn't been paid attention to in my mind. And there's things that have happened over the years that have allowed this consolidation, which has allowed then market power, market manipulation. And that's why we're in the predicament that we're in now. And it's not that we don't have markets for our product. It's our product is too expensive to manufacture. Our product is too expensive to make and sell for what the going price is.
Do you know this was on the internet I was reading the article, and you might have sent it to me. I don't remember who it was, but it was a farmer in Nebraska, and he was talking about pricing equipment out of state,
Mm-hmm.
and they told me he couldn't even buy it.
Mm-hmm.
You ever run into that?
Yeah, regional marketing. It's very, very frustrating.
You do with seed.
Well, I know it is in seed.
Yeah,
But
seed and
so you're
counts.
telling me I can't go over to Illinois and price a new tractor?
Most likely not. Or if you do, you're going to pay more for it because Illinois has got to give a kickback to your dealer.
Really?
Yeah, and that's years ago that happened when I went to buy a new skid loader. I'm not going to get into the brand name of it, but it was pretty frustrating. And I was told by the dealership that I wanted to buy it from that they couldn't sell it to me. And so I told them, I said, well, you need to get a hold of the manufacturer and tell them to go fly a kite. You're either going to sell me this piece of equipment or I'm going to go buy a different brand.
Yep.
That's the way it is. And I says, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And so they ended up selling it to me. But there is this regional marketing that is, to me, that's a problem. They're systematically taking the competition out.
Yeah, and that just it's happening in everything. I knew seed. I'm farmed in Kansas, and I always wondered why we couldn't just buy our seed down there and haul
bring
it
it
back
home.
here.
Yeah.
And
So are there any, is there any action that can be taken against this regional marketing? And I'll be honest, up until a week or so ago, I was kind of like in favor of this. Like, I didn't see anything wrong with it. It's what the market would bear. This is what people are willing to pay for seed here, so, why should a seed company take any less for that? But then the gentleman go ahead.
It's not you're willing to pay for it. It's you don't have a choice.
That's correct.
And they say, oh, well, you bought it willingly. Well, no, I really wasn't willing to buy it. But if I don't, I'm done.
How is that really the free market? That's
It's not.
it's not.
It's not what the market is willing to bear. It's what what we think you will actually pay for it. And then we're going to add a little bit more onto that.
The problem is the freedom of choice for the farmer to go to Kansas, to go to Texas and buy it
Is eliminated.
The analogy that the gentleman had made that I was having this discussion with is like, well, you could go buy that pickup in Texas if you want to. You don't have to buy it here in town, but you can't do that with seed. You have to go.
And guess what? If you go buy that pickup in Texas, you need it serviced. Dealership here is not going to be very happy with you.
Right.
I have not run into that, but
I have.
I buy a lot of used.
But I'm talking about semi trucks.
Sure.
And,
sure.
Yeah. This is in 2001. I bought 3 Freightliner Classics decked out to the hilt. These were beautiful trucks, chrome everywhere, just beautiful. Everybody wanted to drive one, right?
Yeah.
Paid $78,000 a piece for them, brand spanking new in Tennessee. Work on them up here too bad, so I ended up buying one up here too.
So they'd work on.
So they would work on them. But $78,000 for brand new semi tractor.
It's bargain.
You can't even buy a used one for that hardly anymore with
You'd
half a
have
million miles on it.
You'd have to put another 100,000 with that 78, and I don't know if you could buy a new one
No.
then.
About 200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another case of the customer's always right. Just might cost them more. So, in fact, you were right. You were right to go down there and buy that. But when it was time to do business with the guy up here, it just cost you more.
Right.
So,
In fact, that truck that I bought here was $10,000 more.
right. Yeah, customer's always right.
I've run into that, not on a skid loader, but on a telehandler and a mini hoe. Not going to say the company, but might be the same company you're talking about. But I did get them from the dealership where I went, only because I happen to farm in multiple counties, and their ability to sell in one of those counties was okay. So they just delivered it to that farm, and then we had to go pick it up and drive it over here.
So, what do we do about this? What's the solution?
Well,
for
I don't know.
this?
I think that
Like
the
this
whole
right-
thing, and we've been all over the place, but it goes back to, I think John F. Kennedy said it, the farmer is the only person that buys retail and sells wholesale and pays the trucking both ways. It's just that the trucking bill is getting too big to take. So then we end up, okay, we're gonna do a bailout, but the bailout is just a pass through.
Yeah, that's another
We
thing.
get the bad name of we get the bad rap about it, but it doesn't stay here. It
No.
just gets moved on, because although the bean price is the same, our inputs are.
So somebody joked the other day about they got to see their bailout check. I said, really? I didn't even get to see it. It went in the account and it went right back out, And
My check didn't even come.
We got them yet.
yeah, right.
Maybe I'm not getting.
You got so much money coming in, you can't keep track of it.
Boy. If
No,
that gets to be a problem, I'll
That's
let you
the
know.
frustrating thing, and that's why I'm a pissed off farmer, is because we got all these people that are upset that there's this bailout, and it's not a bailout whatsoever. It's called money laundering,
Yeah.
and it is going from the taxpayer to corporate organizations who have shareholders that are making record profits, and us as farmers are in the same exact spot as before we got that check. And the funny thing is, there seems to be a little bit of a correlation, and I'll call it out. Seems to be a little bit of a correlation on whenever there's an announcement that there's going to be some type of money given to farmers, input prices go up,
Now-
especially in the fertilizer industry. As just recently, when they started talking about this $14 billion going to beans, the price of phosphate went up by about $35 a ton.
John Deere just announced that price increases were taking place on 26 or 27 production year equipment.
Yep.
Right after that came out. I mean, it's a real thing.
The other
Something
thing
needs
that
to-
happens, though, it also happens the other way. If they would announce they're going to start investigating anything,
That happens.
then all of a sudden it drops down, because we don't want that.
Well, I mean, this investigation thing, Corteva is spinning off the seed line from the
These two
chemical
chemical-
line now.
yeah.
Like,
I think there was actually it was more than just an investigation. I think there was potential litigation on that as well.
if they did not take action and split them.
Possibly. I don't know for sure,
Sure.
but I think there was some type of litigation there. I don't follow that one.
So yeah,
very
to your
good,
point,
so-
things happen
I
Yeah.
think
when the pressure comes on.
But
when
there needs to be pressure.
Yeah.
That absolutely needs to happen. And you know what? Our Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, making an announcement, with the USDA and the DOJ working hand in hand on looking into these input issues. I mean, that's great that they brought this up and that they're saying that they're going to do this. And I am absolutely looking forward to see what the results of that may be. So,
But if it's over this countervailing duty that you're talking about, that was done with everybody's blessing. They just never took it back off.
Right.
well, I don't
Correct.
know if it was everybody's blessing, but the ITC's blessing was the only one that blessed that. I don't think anybody was necessarily blessing that.
Okay.
So the countervailing duty. So there needs to be a policy on countervailing duties, okay? And it's to protect an American company from other countries dumping in a product and
Right.
running them out of business, okay? Well, when you look at that whole scenario with the countervailing duty and the phosphate, it appears to be because of 2019. You remember we had a really, really wet year, and there was a lot of fertilizer that was not placed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that Morocco and other countries where phosphate originated from, a lot of that was sitting in warehouses yet in the United States, and Mosaic couldn't move their production.
The inventory was there, but they couldn't move any new production.
The Mosaic's manufacturing facility, and I think Nutrien's got one in Aurora, North Carolina, maybe, weren't able to move product. And so they called it a dumping type situation and applied for countervailing duties. And that was applied at 19.94% or something like that. And we paid for it. Now, we are the consumer on that, and we are only 1.5% of the population that took that countervailing burden. And a company that has, 70 or 80% of the market share, and yet exports half of their product into the world market, sure doesn't seem right to me.
But it was never lifted.
It was reviewed.
Well, okay, but that's not lifted.
No, it wasn't lifted. It was reviewed, and they backed it down to like 6% or 2% or something. Well, I don't think it went to 2%, but it got back down a bit. But then it almost immediately went right back up to, I think it's at 16 something.
See, they were going to investigate it, so it got dropped, and then.
Exactly.
Oh, you're done with that. Now
Yeah. So.
Well, Lance, we've kind of gone over our allotted time that we try to do these in. We got a lot more we could talk about, but I want to thank you for coming down tonight, and it's good to see you again.
Appreciate the discussion.
Thank you, Lance.
So, and for our listeners, I hope you rush on back for another episode. Thank you.
Thanks, Lance.